we're going to hear from Lindsay Rhodes and Mark Lazarus talking about redefining the storage landscape.
My name is Lindsay Rhodes. I'm a Senior Solutions Advisor at Huon IT. First, I'd like to give you a bit of background around Huon IT, and then I'll pass you to Mark to run through some innovation in the storage area. So Huon IT, we've been providing IT support to legal firms for 25 years. Many of those clients that started with us 25 years ago are still with us today. Some of our services include strategic planning, system and software integrations, managed services, and of course cloud solutions as well. From large organisations that have 100+ in-house teams to smaller firms with one or two, we're always looking for ways to innovate and offer new ways to help our clients. Our industry presence, I suppose, in legal over that time gives us a lot of exposure into a wide array of solutions, both software and hardware, that are implemented within the industry. And this knowledge is something that we draw upon very strongly when developing strategic advice and working with our partners. Working collaboratively, I think, with in-house is always a very important part. Obviously, it enables successful project delivery. We often shape to fit for our customers as well, so I suppose we're looking for ways to allow them to better control their budgets and avoid being locked into heavy support overheads, things of that nature. We have a specialist team of consultants who are experts in a wide variety of these IT systems. And I suppose it's an end-to-end process for us, so from the initial strategic assistance and help through to business case creation and even assisting to present to boards where required, through to implementation, hand-holding, knowledge transfer. These are all absolutely key. Our ultimate goal, obviously, is to implement a solution that can be managed internally, and obviously Huon IT is always available to assist in an ongoing capacity if needed. Perhaps some of our most exciting implementations and some of our nimble implementations are shown behind here have been nimble storage integrations. And a lot of the tangible benefits that we have seen from these have been around improved operational expenses, drastically simplified management against a lot of the legacy arrays, and I suppose in many cases a very dramatic improvement in performance as well. In terms of Huon IT, we're Eastern Seaboard based, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, large in-house consultancy, and again, obviously we've been honoured to be Nimble Storage's Partner of the Year in 2013, which was very exciting. But here to speak more about Nimble Storage is Mark Lazarus. He is the Director of Technical or Technology for Asia Pac, and I'll hand you over to Mark now. Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Look, I'm not sure how many people know about Nimble Storage, and I'll very quickly go through this because I know we've got a fairly short space of time. You said 45 minutes, right? So as a company, we've been around since 2008, about 6 years, shipping product for about 4. The numbers that you see crossed out, I joined Nimble about 2 years ago here in Australia. 600 customers globally, now 3,750 just 2 years later. In fact, last quarter alone, we added 660 new customers. I won't go through all of that, but I guess here in Australia, probably more pertinent staff-wise, I was about employee number 3 here in Australia. We've got about 27 staff here in Australia now. Across the region, APAC and Japan, probably 50, 55 staff now. Publicly traded company. I just set that benchmark because there's a number of people sort of a little while ago who were saying we won't be around for too long, but we're certainly starting to prove them completely incorrect. So a couple of things that I wanted to focus on. Performance is not necessarily something you would normally look for in a legal firm, if you like. But one of the things that I just heard talked about in that last session was around mobility. One of the keys to getting decent mobility services off for your partners and your staff is around performance. And I'll certainly touch a little bit on that and how that's such an important thing in terms of delivering performance. A little bit of history here. Traditional storage, it's been around for a long, long time, and historically it's always been around throwing a lot of dollars and throwing a lot of very high performance disks at something to get performance out of it. If you want some capacity, you sort of throw that at high density drives, and as the industry has evolved a bit more, how do I go faster? Well, you throw more spindles at it, whether you want capacity or not. More capacity, well, throw more spindles at it. So that's generally been the answer to from most storage vendors, throw more spindles at the problem. A little more recently, SSD, so high-speed cache, if you like, or SSD-type disks have come onto the market, and they've certainly made a big difference, and a lot of people are throwing those into an environment, creating a new tier of storage and sort of trying to rearrange data on the fly, not necessarily very successfully, but it's all about compromise, and that's what I mean in terms of, do you want capacity or do you want performance, because you're not going to get both, and that's essentially what those things are around. There's been a new set of new players, I guess, on the marketplace as well, SSD-only vendors. And they come with some very, very fast equipment, and maybe for mobility that might be a good thing, but you still have to have some capacity floating around somewhere, so where are you going to get that? So the answer then becomes, well, I'll have a second storage array, and that's what I'll do my capacity of. So again, we're talking about compromise. Performance or capacity, you can't have both. So Nimble Storage came around and sort of started asking, so we've got a couple of key technologies that are out there in the marketplace now. We've got high-performance multi-core CPUs, high-density drives, SSDs. How do we go about using that technology to deliver a far better outcome for our customers? So in other words, not compromising and not having that compromise in terms of performance and or capacity. How do we leverage those things? So we put those things together to deliver some sort of technology that allows you to store everything on high-density drives but delivers significant amount of performance. So solves a whole bunch of operational things, as Lindsay was talking about. So one tier of storage to think about. There's a number of benefits around that operationally, let alone the performance aspects that get gained. So what this technology, we call it CASA, but what this technology allows us to do is deliver, as I said, very high levels of performance while still writing all our data to high-density drives and using the techniques around CPU to deliver high performance, using SSD just to accelerate read performance, but not do it in a tiering-based technology. So a benefit of a clean sheet of paper is we didn't have a whole bunch of things that we had to bolt on over time. So the capabilities around this to deliver highly efficient, simple to manage environments that deliver high performance while delivering large amounts of capacity should you need them, and be able to scale in any particular direction, whether it be capacity and or performance. So you have a mobility project coming along, you need a whole bunch of extra performance. How do you do that? Well, you don't have to wheel in a brand new array. You can just boost the performance on the existing box. So for us, it's all about numbers of CPUs. So increasing the number of CPUs makes the box go faster. Even when I compare that against all the more modern vendors that are in the marketplace around SSD only, just to put that in context, I guess. So I might bore you with a couple of details here, but a slow spinning fat SATA drive delivers about 80 IOPS. An SSD drive delivers about 5,000 IOPS, about 3,000 write and about 5,000 read. What this CASL, this CPU-driven architecture can deliver, so our smallest storage array delivers, and it doesn't matter how many spindles are in it, delivers about 3,500 IOPS per 7.2K slow spinning drive. The 500 delivers even more speed than you can get out of SSD-specific drives. And our largest system delivers about 3 times the performance. So when someone comes along and says you need an SSD-only array to run mobility, well, there are other better ways of doing that without having to compromise that thing between performance and capacity. So availability, that's fairly key in terms of this environment. The lawyers charge lots of money and they want things to be up. And they want them to be up 24/7. I don't need to tell you guys all of that. So what are we doing to try and deliver much better outcomes in terms of availability? Proactive support sounds simple enough, but unlike a lot of storage vendors that are out there now, where probably they know about a failed piece of componentry within their storage array before you do, and they've shipped you out a replacement part, we wanted to take it a little bit further. So why don't we start collecting, because we've got that connectivity to the storage arrays, why don't we collect a whole bunch of extra information from that environment and start doing predictive analysis, so data warehousing, predictive analysis on those environments, and start predicting problems before they happen. So what we start doing is collecting rafts and rafts of information from our storage arrays, metadata, to be able to do a whole bunch of predictive analysis, avoid problems before they become major issues. We've obviously got fully redundant equipment, so there's no single points of failure. Hardware changes. There's things I was talking about before. If I need to increase performance on the box, how do I go about doing that? It's not a forklift. It's a non-disruptive change. I can just increase the performance on the box on the fly. triple parity RAID. We're using high-density, slow-spinning drives, but we protect them very, very efficiently in terms of making sure your data is protected very well. So those multiple things allow us to achieve significant levels of availability. So we've been audited for the last 2 years across our entire customer base. So not just a couple of key example customers or a couple of lab environments sitting out the back end in terms of availability, achieving higher than 5 nines availability across our entire install base. So unheard of for a vendor, I guess, that's only been delivering product for 4 years, 2 of which are at greater than 5 nines worth of availability. A couple of other key stats, that proactive approach that I talked about for helping deliver. So consider Nimble support as an extension of your support team, helping monitor and manage your environment for you. So about 90% of the cases that are raised within Nimble are raised by Nimble on behalf of the customer. About 80% of those are automatically closed. What do I mean by that? It's one of those classics, I closed the issue, so therefore the problem's gone away. No, it's we've identified some sort of issue that's occurring either now or in the future. We send an email out to our clients saying we've identified the following, here are the steps to overcome the problem or avoid the problem in the first place. We'll close the case. By all means, call us if you need any further assistance. So that's what that 80% is all about. So it allows us to scale our support team with just Tier 3 people, not Tier 1, Tier 2 people, Tier 3 people who understand networking, storage and virtualization to help you get access to closure, if you like, on issues. And because of all that data that's coming back from the storage arrays, our support team basically have exactly the same view of what's going on in the array as you. Log information, you don't have to ship that up to us. We've already got that information. So that proactive capability through this product called InfoSight allows us to, as I said, avoid problems and have those high levels of availability. All that data that we've got coming up to us, we thought, what else can we use this for? So how about we provide that back to our customers to empower them to understand what's going on in their environment? Not just storage, but also things that are related to storage. So in the mobility case that we're talking about, are we seeing slowness in the network? Are we seeing slowness in the servers that are connected to our storage? So we monitor all those sorts of things and deliver that reporting and analytics back to our customers from a free portal up on our website. So just a couple of example reports that talk about, so how is my system going? Because our system's powered by CPU and cache, nothing to do with spindles, so they're the 2 key important things in terms of performance for us. So nice simple measurements to show exactly what's going on in the environment. Making suggestions for customers about increasing cache or increasing CPU will help on this particular environment. So I don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out what's going on in the thing. What I jokingly tell customers is, you don't need training to read this report. Red's bad, yellow's not so good, green's good. Simple thing like capacity planning. Simple reports that show growth over time, predict the next 3 months worth of growth. So we're telling customers 3 months ahead of time, hey, we're predicting you're going to get to 90% capacity on the 22nd of November. Reduce the amount of capacity you've got, increase the amount of capacity you've got, it's entirely up to you. Much better than getting a tap on the shoulder that, hey, you went to 95% yesterday, you better do something about it rapidly. So those are the sorts of things that we're using this InfoSight product to help empower people and deliver much better SLAs for your business. So in terms of data protection, typical model. So I have a primary tier, maybe a tier 1, I have a secondary tier, tier 2, I replicate them for DR. I move the data a second time for my backup. So generally speaking, IT organisations talk about data protection and storage delivery as 2 separate teams. They don't tend to interact, the budget's completely separated, and you get exactly what you see up on the screen here, where I'm moving multiple pieces of data. I've got 3 copies of the data lying around the organisation. So I've got a primary copy, a DR copy, and a disk-to-disk copy before it potentially goes off to tape. Now, if you're a storage vendor, that's fantastic news. 3 copies, 4 preferably, but 3 is great news for us. How do we change that? So again, high performance, easy to use, proactive support in terms of how we help manage your organisation. How do we change that perspective around protecting your data? So initially, delivering better levels of data protection. So instead of the classic daily backups, how about doing instant point-in-time copies every 15 minutes, every half an hour, every hour, whatever it happens to be, depending on the sort of application you're running. So my SLAs for recovery now are much more improved. I don't have to wait. A lawyer creates a document at the start of the day and deletes it by the end of the day, or does something by the end of the day to blow it away. I can get it back. So those are the sorts of things this sort of technology allows you to do. how about combining backup and DR in one foul swoop? So I can replicate this to a second site, I can keep long-term archives sitting on that secondary location. It's only changed compressed blocks that live within that environment. So I can now keep weeks, months, perhaps years worth of data sitting on that secondary site. The benefit for your organisation in terms of lowering TCO is I've now spent money on a disk-to-disk tier, and you've probably already done that. DR comes along free for the ride. I don't need to spend any more money on storage for DR because it's one and the same thing. I'm only moving data once, and I'm getting the benefit of being able to protect it both for primary, for DR, and long-term retention in terms of disk space. So a number of different things that our storage delivers, I guess, for organisations to help improve performance, drive down costs, and improve SLAs for the business. You know, we run generally systems, with a couple of examples, where mixed environments, as I said, mobility comes along and suddenly you've driven to delivering much higher performance costs. Do you need to wheel in a new storage array? Well, that's typically what vendors will tell you. That's certainly not what we'll be telling you. Run it on a single environment. So it's about, as I said, making good use of what you've got, reducing the amount of footprint, so everything's compressed, everything's thin provisioned. It's about reducing the amount of footprint you've got on the floor while delivering high levels of performance. So typically we'll see 4x reductions in power, space and cooling within environments when we put our technology on the floor, because of the fact that we're not spindle bound and we're storing everything in a very efficient manner. So for organisations that are trying to reduce costs around those sorts of things, TCO as well as upfront costs in terms of buying this infrastructure, significant advantage with all those other things that come along for the ride around improved SLAs, data protection and performance. So just leave that up, I guess, in terms of finishing off, so perfect timing for finishing. Essentially, those 4 key pillars. As I said, performance isn't generally something you guys drive for in the environments, but as you get into that mobility environment, as you get maybe better data warehousing, as the lawyers start to get into maybe a data warehousing environment and start doing better things with their CRMs to deliver something to their clients, you've got all those things on tap without having to go out and buy a whole bunch of new infrastructure. So with that, I think I'll finish up.